Hello, this is Dr. Mike, and I wanted to spend a little bit of time with you this week talking about some generalities of understanding the New Testament as we talk about introduction. One of the great collection of writings in the world is the New Testament, as we'll see as we move forward. And there's some really great things about it that I think will be not only academically a help to you, but also a blessing in your own personal Christian walk. And I think you'll benefit from both of those from this time that we have together. The New Testament and the Old Testament didn't fall out of heaven as a complete book. There was a process of that it went through to develop, and of course, by the time Jesus came on the scene, the Old Testament was pretty much in its final form. There are always the apocryphal books, those books that are kind of left over at the end on the cutting room floor that some versions of the Bible include as a part of the canon. And of course, the canon means this collection. And you might have read those. In fact, most Bibles carried the apocryphal books well up into the 1800s. The Geneva Bible that the Puritans brought to America would have contained that. The King James Bible, which many of you should be familiar with, would have contained it up until about 1800. And then those books were dropped, but they had been carried from earliest times. But so by the time Jesus came, they were pretty much in, the collection was together. It would take probably another 300 years after the first century for the New Testament to be put together and become in its final form, which is what we'll be looking at. The other thing that is of interest would be the times that are encompassed by the New Testament. We tend to have this deal of we have our own kind of way of looking at things, look at things through our lens. To really understand the New Testament, you're not going to be able to do that. You need to look through the lens of first century and of the Jewish times and understand that the New Testament was fundamentally a Jewish book. Jesus was and Paul both were Jewish men. And we talk about them both being a particular of a particular mindset, Second Temple Judaism. And let me explain that just a little bit. We often suffer from, in looking at the Old Testament, our perspective is a little skewed because we don't put the history of the Old Testament into the perspective of what's going on in the world around them. You may have taken a Western civilization course, and in that course, you barely mentioned the Hebrews. And so the question is, do we get a false sense from the Old Testament that this is major history that's going on with the Jews? And the thing is, when you study history, you realize that they were pretty much a backwoods, backwater kind of country, but they were at the crossroads where these great armies walked over them going to battle. The Egyptians in the south, and all the northern powers would cross them. Megiddo, which you will remember mentioned in the scripture, was a wonderful battlefield, and everybody wanted to kind of use that battlefield because it laid out well and was easy to array your troops in battle. But Israel, the only time that you have any major history going on in the Old Testament with them was when these powers that surrounded them had been defeated and were weak and not able to function. And so then you will have kingdoms like David and Solomon rising, or Saul rising to power, and kind of a little bit of throwing off the yoke and maybe doing distinctive things like building the temples and all those things. They certainly could not build those while they were under the yoke of some foreign power. You will remember that the history talks about them being carried away, the 10 tribes being carried away by the Assyrians, and the 2 northern tribes being carried away by the Babylonians. Those were major events. They were captivities. The other thing that we want to think about is religiously, and I don't think this comes across very well in most of our mindsets, but Israel did not become really truly monotheistic in their practice until they came back from Babylon. In most of the texts of the Old Testament, there were other gods in the land. And if you remember in Joshua, when they went in to take the land, the text says that they were order to destroy the inhabitants. Well, many of them fought until they grew tired, and they sat down and coexisted with all of these other cultures and other religions and other practices that were forbidden by God in the Ten Commandments. And so most of that history would be convoluted too, in a sense. Solomon, of course, you know the story of his 700 wives and 300 concubines. He brings these foreign women to Jerusalem. And of course, that was more of a diplomatic, political move than it was an actual marriage, kind of as we think of it. But if you married a king's daughter, he would be less likely to attack you and cause a problem. And so marrying his daughter was a way of appeasing and putting down kind of violence and rebellion. But they brought with them their foreign gods. And so all over the hillside, even if you visit Jerusalem today, you will see these groves and high places that were there from those early times. And Israel coexisted with that, often brought them into trouble with God, and ended up causing them to be carried away in the Babylonian captivity. Temple was destroyed, of course, and they were there 490 years, and then came back under Nehemiah and Ezra to restart what was known as the Second Temple. Then when they came back from Babylon, Judaism had become a full-scale religion. They had worked out the theologies, and they had gotten rid of their idolatry. And so the Second Temple era is going to be a time where Jews really become Judaism and practicing their religion. That is the point that I want to make about the New Testament, is that both Jesus and Paul were Second Temple Jews. They were not in that first group, but they were in the second group, where Judaism, you now had groups like the Sadducees and the Herodians and the Pharisees, and different groups, of which Paul was a Pharisee. But there was a tremendous change in the religious structure that is going to very much have its influence on the New Testament. So as you read and study your materials, kind of keep that in the background of your mind, and realize that you need to look, just like we do in history. We talk about not looking back at history through our own lens, but to try to develop the lens of the period in which you're studying. And so let me invite you to do that yourself. Take off your lens and your 21st century perspective, in a sense, and lay that aside and put on the glasses of the New Testament, and try to understand what we're going to be talking about over the next 8 weeks as a look at a particular period of history and time through their lens. How do they see the world? How did Jesus see the world? How did Paul see the world? What were the influences in his life as he became the writer of much of the New Testament? And he literally, it is Pauline Christianity, because he basically provided the doctrinal structure of the religion that we follow. It has, I often say it has very little to do with Christ. And in a sense, that's funny, but not funny, because it can be co-opted very easily. And you always have to ask yourself the question, when we talk about New Testament Christianity, a lot of churches today will claim that they are a New Testament church. How much does it reflect the teachings of Jesus, and how much does it affect that new first century church in their actions and their praxis, or their practice? So we have a lot of great things to talk about. I encourage you to be involved in that conversation, to ask questions, and to let's discuss in the discussion boards. It's not just doing your minimal things, but it is getting involved with your classmates and myself as we write and discuss and talk about various things that you need to think about. So we're kind of looking. Your first discussion board was about your experience with the Word of God and with the Bible and those kinds of things, and how that has affected your life. And then we want to kind of lay out the things that we know, that we think we know, on the table, and examine them realistically to see if what we were taught might be the way it was, or was there some other nuanced meaning that maybe we have missed. And so hopefully those things, we're laying a foundation here. This is a very foundational course. Many of you have expressed in your bio your desires in this course to get a better spiritual foundation. Well, you know, your salvation is one thing, and your personal religion, your faith is one thing, but these kind of courses lay the foundation upon which you can build an infrastructure of spiritual development. So that's why they are important. I've been studying the New Testament for more than 50 years. I became a Christian when I was 12 years old, and very seriously at that point began to study the Bible. I sat under some great ministers. I learned a great deal from them. I've taken courses. I have a mountain of courses that I've taken in theology and degrees that where I've looked at religion, but I also need to kind of separate religion from my faith and my Christianity, and you know, look at it in light of that. Am I following the guidelines of Christ? So those are the kind of things we'll talk about. It's always good to talk about those. And if you have questions, you know, of course, there are different levels that we're all at in our journey. You may not even be a Christian. That's fine, but we can study from a lot of different ways. But I want to encourage you to talk to me. Don't ever run from a teacher who runs after you trying to get you to talk, because you'll find very few of those in your academic career. A teacher that takes the time to want to see that you get the right facts and the things that you need. And as I've said, many of you have expressed in your bio what you'd like to get out of this class. I want you to get those things that you want from the class. And I encourage you, though, but you will get back in measure what you put into the class. Don't just take in, because that will at some point slow the learning process. But as you take it in, discuss it, teach somebody else, turn to talk to someone else about it, either your classmates, your roommates, your parents, talk to them about the things that we're learning, and this will be much more meaningful to you. It will also build your interest in the New Testament, in Christianity, and I've spent my life studying Christian history and all those things, and I want to share a lot of those things with you. This is a wonderful course for us to do that with, and I'm here for you. You have my phone number, you have my email. I encourage you, pick up the phone, call me if you need to immediately to ask a question, and you don't want to wait on email. If you email me and I take too long to respond, which I will not do, hopefully, but if I do, pick up the phone. We need that kind of relationship so that you'll leave here. My goal for this class is that this will be the best class you ever take in your academic career. That's a tall order, and I will work to do that, but I can't do it alone. I cannot push a log chain down the road against its will. So you have to help me. You must communicate. You must ask questions. And anything you see in your grading that's amiss, please get back with me. Let's keep short accounts. That's a great spiritual truth as well. Always keep short accounts with people. Don't let things fester and grow, because little problems become bigger problems, and they can, like a snowball, get out of hand. Let's don't do that during this term. So as we think about the New Testament, think about these things. Think about the day. The Jews come back from Babylon under the boot of the Romans, Roman oppression. They are never again a free people all the way up to 70 AD, where Jerusalem was destroyed and the Jews were dispersed in the diaspora to the ends of the earth. And they're not collected together again until 1948. That's a long haul, from 70 AD to 1948, when Israel became a nation again. And let me remind you, while we're talking about that, today, the present nation of Israel is not the biblical Israel. They're Jewish, yes, but the same spiritual realities are not there. That's another thing we tend to read on to people, that they're somehow saved, blessed, whatever word you want to use. But you realize that 93% of the nation of Israel today would class themselves as either being atheist or agnostic. So this is certainly not the religious Israel that we find in the New Testament. So we have to draw a few lines of delineation there to understand this. Hopefully these things will help you. And I look forward to hearing from you and let me know what you think about our talk this morning, or if you have questions concerning it, and I will I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you, and we'll talk again soon. Thanks.